Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews and connections of mind, and welcome back to another installment in my reaction series to each and every episode of the 7th and final season of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, if you've never seen any of my other reaction episodes up until this point, it's just my short form reaction series where I give my brief overview of the latest episode of whatever series I'm watching. As soon as I watch that episode, I give some thoughts as to what I thought worked, what I thought didn't work about that episode, as well as some analysis as to certain plot developments and character arcs that may seem familiar to you and where you may have seen them before. Now, just to get this out of the way, this will be a full spoiler review of the latest episode of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So if you've not seen this episode yet and want to wait until you have, I highly suggest stopping the video at this point and coming back once you have, because there will be full spoilers from here on out. So with that being said, and without further ado, let's get into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7, Episode 9, entitled As I Have Always Been, in which we find after surviving the debacle that was the Zephyr jumping faster and faster through time, threatening to jump within a jump, which would have all sorts of heavy consequences, we find that is in fact what happened. They jumped within a jump, and the Zephyr is now caught in a time vortex, drawing ever closer to the center, in which when it reaches the center of the time vortex, the Zephyr will be ripped apart, and as Deke says, none of the people on board the Zephyr will have ever existed. So there's some high stakes here. However, Daisy, who was at the end of the last episode sealing herself in a healing pod in the Zephyr's lab, finds herself repeating the same portion of time over and over again. She's in a time loop. Not only her, but Coulson has memories of the time loop as well. So Daisy and Coulson are the only two people aboard the Zephyr who retain their memories between every time loop, with a twist, however. According to Coulson, they've gone through this time loop 80-some times, and Daisy has died 14 times. And every time she dies, she loses the memory of the time loop and has to relearn the progress over and over again. All the while, with each time loop, the Zephyr is getting closer and closer to the center of the time vortex. All this is going on. Daisy and Coulson determine that Simmons holds the key to figuring out how to fix the time drive so that they can get out of the time vortex. However, that knowledge is locked behind, due to her implant that she had installed before the mission that locks away her memories of where Fitz is and how the time drive actually works. They have to unlock this memory before the Zephyr crashes, but in another extra twist, it turns out Simmons had programmed Enoch to resist the implant getting removed through deadly means, and they have to overcome Enoch, killing them over and over again in order to to get the knowledge out of Simmons' head and deactivate the implant so they can get that knowledge. And when they finally do get the knowledge, it turns out there is a way to fix the time drive. However, doing so will cost Enoch his life. And we see that once that knowledge has been attained, they're on the last time jump possible, the time loop through. They're less than a kilometer away from the center of the vortex. Enoch bravely gives up the component of himself that allows that would allow the repair of the time drive. However, this means that he is slowly dying, and Coulson and Daisy now are keeping him company in his final moments, and Enoch has a long discourse about the meaning of friendship in his life, what it means to be family, a revelation that apparently he has seen the future, and this will be the last mission that everyone on the Zephyr goes as a team, which it's the final season, so of course he has to say something like that, and I'm sure they're going to write around that somehow. But the repair works. The Zephyr is taken out of the time vortex. And also, a minor development in this episode is the fact that Daisy and Agent Sousa seem to have grown closer, at least in part of the loop. And Daisy expresses feelings for Sousa, and they have a bit of a moment together, which is kind of nice. But that's the main bulk of this episode. We see the Zephyr stuck in a time vortex, and then they get out of the time vortex by the end of the episode, and we're the final scenes of this episode tease the fact that Nathaniel Malick is training up. What was her name? Cora, I think. Daisy's half sister. And how to use her powers, and he's going to take advantage of her to wreak untold havoc on the world that should never have happened. So that will be for next week's episode. What I thought worked about this episode is, honestly, the whole time loop genre has been having a slight renaissance with the release of Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You, but also with the fact that other things such as was it Palm Springs has a time loop. Edge of Tomorrow also uses time loops. This whole genre is kind of a cool thing in that you have a very confined story where it feels like you're spinning your wheels, but you are in fact gaining traction as the story goes on. And I like the various twists that they have that they can integrate into the time loop genre. The fact that you don't have an unlimited number of time loops to get something right. The one of the more unique twists, I think, in this particular example of a time loop is that once you die, you lose all the memories that you had in that time loop. And then you have to start all over again. I think that's a somewhat unique twist on this genre. Also, the fact that they're combining all these things I like the fact that Coulson retains the memories from all the time loops as well. So you have kind of a mix of sort of like Edge of Tomorrow where Tom Cruise retains all the knowledge from each time loop, and he has to constantly get Emily Blunt's character up to speed each and every time loop, kind of like how Coulson has to bring up to speed Daisy every time she dies, and then she loses her memory, and then she has to then they have to go through the time loops all over again. I like that unique twist to it, and also like Happy Death Day. I think what I think worked better than Happy Death Day in the regards of a character getting close to someone else through the numerous time loops and expressing feelings towards one another. In this case, while I'm not entirely sold on the Sousa-Daisy pairing off as how their chemistry will work, I recognize the two kindred souls aspect of it, and I mean, as someone who I would hope they work it out. That would be nice, but I'm not entirely sold on it. But I think it works better than the romance in Happy Death Day between Tree and I forget his name now, but because they had already had a prior relationship up before the time loop, and them expressing their feelings now is only a manifestation of that they have the time to that Daisy has the time to explore this part of these feelings without the consequence of figuring things out. Rather than in Happy Death Day, where Tree learns more and more about what's his name, but he forgets every single time, and it's sort of a one-sided relationship there, I think. So I think that works a little bit better here than it did in Happy Death Day, but all of that being said, I think there's some similarities to go there. I think it worked out well. What I think probably could have been it didn't quite land, at least for me, was Enoch's deathbed diatribe or whatever. And I think they're trying, I think the actor who plays Enoch, he's doing his best with what he's got. He's really trying to sell emotion through an emotionless delivery, but something about it just doesn't quite land to, I think, to the extent that that they wanted it to. And the As I Always Have Always Been, the name of the episode is referring to that Daisy says that he's been a really good friend to Fitz, and he's as I've always been, and that is a wonderful sentiment, but I don't know, something about it, maybe it's the delivery, maybe it's because that it seemed to go on for a little bit too long. I don't know, something about that just didn't quite hit for me. Maybe it hit better for you. Maybe I'm completely wrong in this, but I don't know, something about that. I feel like it didn't quite hit land the way I think it was intended to. Other than that, I think this episode did really well. There was an interesting tease with Simmons, once she actually gets the implant free, she starts breaking down about what happened to Fitz, and we don't know what happened to Fitz at this point. The time loop reset, so who knows what that means for Fitz. And my theory is somehow his body died, his consciousness is in the Zephyr somehow, a la Solo. Who knows? That's a theory. I think that's a good enough theory as any. Hopefully they answer that before the series ends. But overall, I think this was a very enjoyable episode. Like I said, I really like the time loop premise. I think it's interesting to see the different twists on this. And the one thing I will say about the time loop thing, in the first iteration of the time loop in this episode, they do the first run through, then the Marvel's Agents of Shields, then the writing and directing credits, and then when it resets, it does the Marvel's Agents of Shield and credits again. And I don't know, that felt a little excessive. They probably could have avoided that, and we probably could have. We would have figured it. I think we would have figured it out eventually at this point. I don't think that was particularly necessary, but I don't know. That was just a little personal nitpick. But what did you think of this week's episode? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Did I miss anything? I probably missed something. Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to tune in next week for my review of next week's episode. And if you like any other video on my channel, be it this video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and especially subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to tune in next week. But just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.